Part 1. The diplomatic crisis. The space station Concordia floated like a silver jewel against the black void of space. Inside its great halls, representatives from dozens of alien species sat around a massive round table. The first interspecies peace summit in galactic history was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it was falling apart. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's ambassador, watched the chaos unfold. The tall, bird-like Craxians were screeching at the slug-like Malians. The energy. Beings called ethereals flickered with angry colors. Everyone was shouting in different languages. The universal translators were struggling to keep up. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. She had been a xenobiologist before becoming a diplomat. She studied alien life forms, not politics. But Earth needed someone who understood different species, and she was the best they had. Order. Order. Called the station's AI through the speakers. Nobody was listening. Then the doors burst open. A woman ran into the room, but she wasn't human. Her skin looked like living crystal, pale blue and transparent. Strange patterns of light moved under her skin like glowing tattoos. She was tall and thin, with large eyes that sparkled like diamonds. Her white hair floated around her head as if she was underwater. Sarah knew immediately what she was looking at. A Vorthan. The most advanced species in the galaxy. They were so smart and powerful that other aliens called them the first children. Of the stars, seeing one was rare. Having one run into a meeting like this was impossible. The crystal woman stumbled to the center of the room. Her light patterns were flashing wild colors, red, orange, yellow. Sarah had studied Vorthon biology. Those colors meant panic and fear. "Please," the Vorthon woman cried out. "You must listen. My people are dying." The room went quiet. Even the angriest aliens stopped arguing. When a Vorthan asked for help, something was very wrong. Sarah stood up from her chair. "What's your name?" she asked gently. The Vorthan woman turned to her. Up close, Sarah could see tears running down her crystal face. "I am Zarakith, daughter of the Vorthan High Council. And we need your help more than any species has ever needed help before." "Tell us what's happening," Sarah said. Zarakith's voice shook as she spoke. 3 months ago, a plague appeared on our home world. But it's not like any disease we've ever seen. Our best doctors can't cure it. Our most advanced technology can't stop it. People just fade away. They become weak and tired. Then they die. The Craxian ambassador clicked his beak. The mighty Vorthons can't cure a simple plague. Hard to believe. Zarakith's light patterns flashed angry red. "It's not simple. We've tried everything. Every medicine, every treatment, every technology we have. Nothing works. 12 of our colony worlds have already gone silent. Billions are dead." Her heart sank. The Vorthines were the most advanced species in the galaxy. If they couldn't cure this plague, who could? "But there's something else," Zarakith continued. "Our ancient texts speak of this plague. They call it the loneliness death. The only cure mentioned in our oldest records is something called the bond of two souls." "What does that mean?" asked the Malian representative, his slimy tentacles waving with curiosity. "I don't know." "Exactly. But the texts say that when two beings from different species create a true bond, not just friendship or alliance, but a deep connection of souls, they become immune to the plague. More than that, they can cure others." The room erupted in discussion. Everyone was talking at once again. Impossible. Soul bonds are just mythology. The Vorthons are getting desperate. Zarakith raised her voice above the noise. "We've tried everything. We attempted the ethereal mind meld, but our thoughts are too different. Mental feedback nearly killed both participants. We tried the Craxian honor bonding ritual, but the combat requirements meant both fighters died before any bond could form." She turned to look at each species around the table. "We tried chemical bonding with the Malians, but our biology rejected their secretions. We attempted energy resonance with the quantum collective, but our frequencies are incompatible. Ritual, every ceremony, every method of connection known to galactic civilization, we've tried them all. They all failed." Sarah watched as Zarakith's light patterns shifted to deep blue. the color of sadness and despair. "We are dying," Zarakith whispered. "My entire species is fading away, and we don't know why. We've ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We've helped younger species grow and learn. We've shared our knowledge and technology freely. But now, when we need help, no one knows what to do." The room was quiet now. Even the most arrogant species looked uncomfortable. Vorthons had been like elder brothers to the galaxy. They weren't supposed to need help. Dr. Chen stood up again. "Zaraketh, you mentioned that you've tried bonding with every species, but Earth is new to galactic civilization. Have you tried bonding with humans?" Zaraketh turned her diamond eyes toward Sarah. For a moment, hope flickered in her light patterns. Then it faded. "Humans are so young," she said sadly. "Your species only discovered space travel a few decades ago. You have no telepathy, no energy manipulation, no advanced biology. What could humans possibly offer that the great civilizations of the galaxy cannot?" Sarah felt a strange stirring in her chest. As a xenobiologist, she had spent years studying how different species connected and communicated. She had always been fascinated by how humans seemed to understand aliens better than those aliens understood each other. "Maybe that's exactly the point," Sarah said quietly. "What do you mean?" Zaraketh asked. "Every species you've mentioned has specialized ways of connecting. Telepathy, energy bonding, chemical signals, combat rituals. They're all very advanced and specific. But what if the solution isn't about being advanced? What if it's about being ... different?" The Craxian ambassador ruffled his feathers. "Ridiculous. Humans are primitive. They barely understand their own emotions, let alone anyone else's." Sarah felt her temper rise, but she kept her voice calm. "You're right. We don't have telepathy or energy powers. But we do have something else, something that every other species seems to have lost." "And what's that?" asked the ethereal representative, its form shimmering with skepticism. Sarah looked directly at Zaraketh. "We have the ability to care about strangers." The room fell silent again, but this time it was different. It was the silence of people thinking, not people arguing. "Think about it," Sarah continued. "Every bonding method you've tried requires both species to be similar in some way. Same mental patterns, same biology, same cultural values. But humans bond with things that are completely different from us. We keep alien pets. We cry at movies about robots. We risk our lives to save people we've never met." Zaraketh's light patterns began to shift, curious purple mixed with hopeful green. "You're saying humans can bond without compatibility?" Asked. "I'm saying maybe that's what your people need. Not someone who's like you, but someone who can care about you anyway." Suddenly an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the AI's voice echoed through the halls. "Attention all delegates. We have received an emergency transmission from Vorthon space. The plague has reached the homeworld. Vorthon Prime is under quarantine. All communication has been lost with the capital city." Zaraketh collapsed to her knees. Her light patterns went completely white, the color of absolute despair. "We're too late," she whispered. "My family, ... my children, are all on the homeworld." Sarah didn't think. She didn't consider protocol or diplomacy, or the fact that she barely knew this alien woman. She just walked over and knelt beside Zaraketh. "We're not too late," Sarah said firmly. "We're going to figure this out." Zaraketh looked up at her with those crystal eyes, now filled with desperate hope. "What must I do to bond with you tonight?" "Human," she cried out. "My people are dying, and you're the only one who believes we can save them. Please tell me what I must do." Sarah reached out and gently took Zaraketh's crystal hand in her own. First she said, "You don't have to do anything. That's not how humans work. We're going to do this together." As their hands touched, something strange happened. Zaraketh's light patterns suddenly shifted to a color Sarah had never seen in any textbook, a warm, golden glow that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Sarah's heartbeat. Around the room, the other delegates stared in amazement. In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, no one had ever seen a Vorthon's bioluminescence respond to an alien's touch. But Sarah wasn't thinking about making history. She was thinking about a dying species and a desperate woman who had asked for her help. Come on, Sarah said, helping Zarakith to her feet. Let's go save your people. Part 2. The Human Difference Dr. Sarah Chen's quarters aboard the space station Concordia were small and simple. Unlike the other alien delegates who had fancy rooms with special atmosphere controls and exotic lighting, Sarah had just asked for a basic human setup, a bed, a desk, and lots of coffee. Now her simple room was packed with alien technology. Zarakith had brought every piece of Vorthon medical equipment she could carry. Holographic displays showed complex biological data. Strange devices hummed and beeped with alien sounds. The whole place looked like a sci-fi movie had exploded. Sarah stared at the screens, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. She was a xenobiologist, but Vorthon science was thousands of years ahead of human knowledge. It was like trying to understand a computer by looking at its circuits with a magnifying glass. "This doesn't make any sense," Sarah muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. Zaraka sat cross-legged on the floor, her crystal skin glowing with soft blue light. She had been meditating for hours, trying to access her species' genetic memory. It was something all Vorthons could do, connect with the knowledge of their ancestors stored in their DNA. "The plague targets our neural pathways," Zarkith said. Without opening her eyes, "It's not destroying them, it's disconnecting them. It's like someone is slowly unplugging cables in our brains." Sarah looked at another hologram showing a Vorthon brain scan. Even with her limited knowledge, she could see the problem. Parts of the brain that should have been bright with activity were going dark. What happens when those connections are lost? Sarah asked. "We lose the ability to feel connected to others. First, we can't sense other Vorthons' emotions through our bioluminescence. Then we can't access the genetic memory of our people. Finally, we can't even remember why anything matters. We just ... fade away." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "You're not dying from a disease. You're dying from loneliness." Zarakith's eyes snapped open. Her light patterns shifted to surprised orange. "What did you say? Think about it. Your people are losing the ability to connect with each other. They're becoming isolated in their own minds. It's not a medical condition, that's emotional death." Sarah began pacing around the small room, her mind racing. Every other species in the galaxy has some kind of specialized connection system. The ethereals share thoughts directly. The Craxians bond through combat and honor. The Malians use chemical signals to communicate emotions. "Yes, that's why we tried to bond with all of them," Zarakith said. "But that's exactly the problem." Sarah stopped pacing and turned to face her. "All those bonding methods are exclusive. They only work between members of the same species, or species that are very similar. When you tried to use them with other aliens, your biology rejected the connection because it wasn't designed for you." Zarakith stood up, her light patterns now cycling through curious purple and hopeful green. "But humans are different." Sarah nodded. "We're the only species that bonds through empathy instead of biology." "I don't understand. What's empathy?" Sarah sat down on her bed and patted the space beside her. After a moment's hesitation, Zarakith sat down too. "Empathy is the ability to understand and share someone else's feelings. Even if you're completely different from them," Sarah explained. "We don't need telepathy or special chemicals or matching DNA. We just ... care. That sounds too simple. Maybe that's why it works." Sarah smiled. "Let me show you something." She reached over to her desk and picked up a small tablet. On the screen was a video of Earth, specifically a news report about a rescue operation. "This happened last year," Sarah said, starting the video. "An earthquake hit a small country. Thousands of people were trapped under collapsed buildings." The video showed rescue workers from dozens of different nations working together. People who spoke different languages, had different skin colors, followed different religions, all working side by side to save strangers. Within hours, rescue teams from around the world came to help. Sarah continued. They didn't ask about politics or money or whether these people could help them in return. It just came because other humans needed help. Zarakith watched the video with fascination. But why? What did they gain from helping strangers? "Nothing," Sarah said simply. "That's the point. Humans help because we can imagine what it feels like to be in trouble. We don't need to actually experience someone else's pain to care about it. But every species cares about their own people. True. But humans also care about things that aren't human at all. Sarah swiped to another video. This one showed a human veterinarian treating an injured alien, a creature that looked like a cross between a dragon and a butterfly. This is Dr. E. Martinez. She's a xenoveterinarian on the frontier colonies. She spends her life taking care of alien animals that most humans will never even see. She doesn't do it for money or fame. She does it because those creatures need help, and she can help them. Zarakith's light patterns shifted to something Sarah had never seen before, a warm, golden color that seemed to pulse with wonder. Your species bonds with creatures you can't even communicate with, all the time. We keep pets that don't think. Like us, we protect endangered animals that can't thank us. We even cry at movies about robots and aliens. Sarah laughed. My grandmother once spent 3 days nursing a bird back to health, even though the bird bit her every time she tried to help it. That's incredible, Zaraketh whispered. No other species in the galaxy does this. God. No other species needs to, Sarah realized. The ethereals have telepathy, so they always know what others are thinking. The Craxians have honor codes that tell them exactly how to behave. Every species has built-in systems for connection. Humans don't. Exactly. We had to learn how to understand each other without any special abilities. So we developed empathy, the skill of caring about someone even when you don't fully understand them. Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the stars, thousands of different worlds, each with their own species and cultures. Maybe that's why the galaxy needed humans, she said thoughtfully. All these advanced species with their perfect bonding systems. But what happens when those systems fail? What happens when you need to connect with someone completely different from yourself? Zarakith joined her at the window. You're saying humans are like universal connectors? Saying we're the only species that learn to love without conditions. Suddenly, the door chimed. Sarah opened it to find 3 figures standing in the hallway, the Craxian ambassador, the ethereal representative, and a Malian counselor. Dr. Chen, the Craxian said, his feathers ruffled with agitation. We need to talk. What about? The Galactic Council has made a decision about the Vorthan situation, the ethereal said, its energy form flickering with stern colors. They've decided that this empathy bonding idea is too dangerous to attempt. Sarah felt her heart sink. Why? Because it's unscientific, the Malian answered, his tentacles waving dismissively. There's no biological basis for it, no technological framework, no measurable parameters. It's just ... feelings. Feelings that might save an entire species, Sarah shot back. Or feelings that might contaminate proper galactic civilization, the Croxian replied. The Council has decided that emotional bonding is too primitive and unreliable. They want the Vorthans to submit to conventional treatment methods. The same methods that have already failed? Zaraketh stepped forward, her light patterns flashing angry red. The Council believes that with enough time and resources, a proper scientific solution can be found, the ethereal said. One that doesn't rely on primitive human emotions. Sarah looked at these 3 representatives, species that were thousands of years more advanced than humanity, with technologies that seemed like magic. But for all their advancement, they couldn't understand something as simple as caring about a stranger. What if we're right? Sarah asked quietly. What if empathy is exactly what the Vorthans need? Then you'll have to prove it without official support, the Craxian said. The Council has voted. No resources will be allocated for this experiment. The Vorthans must accept conventional treatment. After the 3 aliens left, Sarah and Zaraketh stood in silence for a long moment. They're afraid, Zaraketh said finally. Of what? Of being wrong. If humans can do something that all their advanced civilizations can't do, what does that say about them? Sarah nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand something important. The galaxy's older species had become so specialized, so perfect, in their own ways that they had forgotten how to adapt. They had lost the ability to try something completely new. But humans were still young enough to be flexible, still primitive enough to believe in impossible things. "Zarakith," Sarah said, "how long do your people have?" "Days, maybe weeks before. The homeworld is completely lost." Sarah made a decision that would change everything. "Then we don't have time to wait for the council's approval. We're going to have to do this ourselves." "But how?" "They won't give us access to ships or equipment." Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that had gotten humanity through ice ages and world wars and the long journey to the stars. "Then we'll just have to steal what we need." Zarakith's light patterns shifted to shocked yellow. "Steal? But that's illegal, dangerous, completely crazy." Sarah's smile grew wider. Part 3. The forbidden experiments, the maintenance tunnels beneath Concordia Space Station, were dark, cramped and full of pipes that dripped strange alien fluids. Sarah Chen crawled through the narrow space, following Zarakith's glowing form ahead. Of her, the Vorthan woman's crystal skin provided the only light in the pitch-black tunnel. "Are you sure this leads to the abandoned lab?" Sarah whispered. "Yes," Zarakith replied softly. "I accessed the station's old blueprints. This section was sealed off years ago after a failed experiment. No one comes here anymore." They had been crawling for 20 minutes. Sarah's knees were sore, and her clothes were dirty from the tunnel floor. But it was the only way to reach their destination without being detected by the council's security forces. After what felt like hours, they finally reached a rusty maintenance hatch. Zarakith placed her crystal hand on a scanner beside it. Device flickered for a moment, then beeped softly. The hatch opened with a quiet hiss. They climbed out into a large empty room. Ancient laboratory equipment sat covered in dust sheets. Broken hologram projectors hung from the ceiling like dead spiders. The air smelled stale and forgotten. "Perfect," Sarah said, looking around. "No one will think to look for us here." Zarakith was already pulling off the dust covers, revealing sophisticated alien technology underneath. "Most of this equipment still works. We can use it to monitor our bonding attempts." Sarah watched as Zarakith activated the machines. Lights began blinking, and screens came to life, showing complex readouts that Sarah couldn't understand. She didn't need to understand the technology. She just needed to understand Zarakith. "Before we start," Sarah said, sitting down on a lab stool, "tell me about your family." Zarakith paused in her work. "Why?" "Because I can't bond with someone I don't know. Empathy works by understanding who someone really is, not just what they look like or what species they are." Zarakith's light patterns shifted to uncertain. "Purple. That's very personal." "I know, but that's how human bonding works. We share ourselves with each other." After a long moment, Zarakith sat down across from Sarah. Her glow dimmed to a soft, comfortable level. "I have 2 children." She began quietly. "Kethera is 15 years old. She wants to be an artist. She spends hours creating light sculptures with her bioluminescence. Beautiful patterns that tell stories." Sarah smiled. "That sounds amazing. What about your other child?" "Morden is only 8. He's curious about everything, always asking questions, always taking things apart to see how they work." Zarakith's light patterns shifted to warm gold, the color of love and pride. "He reminds me of myself when I was young." "What about your partner, your husband, Zarakith?" Glow dimmed. "Vorthans don't have husbands or wives like humans do. We have bonded groups, usually 3 or 4 individuals who share their lives together. But my bond group was broken 5 years ago." "What happened?" "They said I was too interested in other species. I was too curious about aliens. They felt I was neglecting my duties to our people." Her light patterns turned sad blue. "They were probably right. I spent more time studying alien cultures than participating in Vorthon society." Sarah felt her heart ache for this lonely alien woman. "Is that why you're the one who came to ask for help? 'Cause you understand outsiders?" "Maybe. Or maybe because I'm already an outsider among my own people." Zarakith looked down at her crystal hands. "I've always felt different. Like I was missing something that other Vorthans had naturally." "What kind of something?" "The ability to be satisfied with just our own species. Other Vorthons are happy living in our perfect cities, surrounded by our perfect technology and our perfect culture, but I always wondered what it would be like to truly know someone completely different from myself. Sarah leaned forward. And now you're dying because your people can't connect with anyone different. The irony is not lost on me, Zarakith said with a bitter laugh. Tell me about the loneliness, Sarah said gently. What does it feel like when the plague starts? Zarakith was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. It starts small. You're talking to someone, and suddenly you can't sense their emotional light anymore. Their patterns still glow, but they don't mean anything to you. It's like trying to read a book in a language you don't understand. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Then you lose access to the genetic memory. Suddenly, you can't remember the stories your ancestors knew. You can't feel the wisdom of thousands of generations guiding you. You're just ... alone in your own mind. Sarah joined her at the window. What happens after that? You forget why anything matters. Your children's laughter sounds like meaningless noise. Your work feels pointless. Even your own thoughts become strange and foreign. Zarakith's light patterns were now pure white, the color of complete despair. You're still alive, but you're not really living anymore. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. As a xenobiologist, she understood the science of what was happening. But as a human, she understood something more important: the emotional devastation of being cut off from everyone you loved. Zarakith, she said softly, I need you to know something. You're not alone anymore. What do you mean? Sarah took Zarakith's crystal hand in her own human one. I mean that I care about you. Not because you're useful to my species, or because we have some kind of political alliance. I care about you because you're a mother who loves her children, because you're someone who is brave enough to ask strangers for help, because you're willing to risk everything to save your people. Zarakith stared at their joined hands. But you barely know me. I know enough. I know you're scared, but you're not giving up. I know you love your children more than your own life. I know you've spent years being lonely because you dared to be curious about others. Sarah squeezed her hand gently. That's enough for me to care about you. Something extraordinary happened. Zarakith's light patterns suddenly shifted to that warm golden glow Sarah had seen once before. But this time, it was stronger. The light seemed to pulse in rhythm with Sarah's heartbeat. The laboratory equipment began beeping frantically. Screens showed energy readings that were off the charts. What's happening? Sarah asked. Zarakith looked at the readouts with amazement. It's working. Our biosignatures are synchronizing. But that should be impossible without technological assistance. Maybe that's the point, Sarah said. Maybe the bond doesn't need technology. Maybe it just needs two people who genuinely care about each other. They spent the next hour talking about everything: Sarah's childhood on Earth, Zarakith's dreams for her children, fears about the future, their hopes for their peoples. With each shared story, the golden glow grew brighter. Sarah told Zarakith about her grandmother, who had taught her that the most important thing in life was to be kind to others, even when they couldn't be kind back. Zarakith shared her deepest feared that she would die before she could tell her children how proud she was of them. Sarah explained why she had become a xenobiologist, because she believed that understanding different forms of life is the key to peace in the universe. Zarakith revealed that she had always dreamed of visiting Earth to see what it was like to live on a world where so many different species of life existed together. Maybe when this is over, you can come visit, Sarah said. I'd love to show you the ocean and the forests and my grandmother's garden. I would like that very much, Zarakith replied. As they talked, something miraculous happened. For the first time since the plague had started, Zarakith felt truly connected to another being, not through technology or biology, but through simple understanding and acceptance. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the abandoned laboratory. Red lights flashed, and heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors outside. They found us, Zarakith said, her light patterns flashing with panic. The laboratory doors burst open. Council security forces poured in, led by the Craxian ambassador and two ethereal enforcers. Dr. Chen? Gotcha, the the Craxian screeched. You were under arrest for unauthorized experimentation and violation of council directives? Sarah stood up, still holding Zaraketh's hand. The golden glow between them pulsed stronger than ever. We're not doing anything wrong, Sarah said firmly. We're trying to save lives. You're contaminating proper galactic order with your primitive, emotional nonsense? One of the ethereals replied, its energy form crackling with authority. This ends now. Look at the readings. Zaraketh pointed to the laboratory equipment. It's working. We've achieved a stable bioenergetic bond. The Craxian glanced at the screens, then ruffled his feathers dismissively. Meaningless data from an uncontrolled experiment. The Council has decided that the Vorthons will submit to conventional treatment. The same conventional treatment that's already failed? Sarah asked. Treatment that will be improved with proper resources and time, the ethereal replied. Not this dangerous emotional contamination you're attempting. Sarah looked around at the security forces surrounding them, armed aliens from species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. All convinced that their way was the only way. But as she looked at them, she realized something important. Despite all their advanced technology and superior intelligence, they were afraid. They were afraid of the... Part 4. The chase across stars, the cargo bay of the human freighter Lucky Star, was noisy and cramped. Captain Maria Santos had answered Dr. Chen's emergency call along with dozens of other human ships. Now her vessel was packed with volunteers, traders, tourists, and workers who had all agreed to help save an alien species they had never met. Sarah Chen sat strapped into a makeshift seat, watching Zaraketh work frantically at a portable computer terminal. The Vorthan woman's light patterns flickered between urgent orange and desperate red as she tried to contact her homeworld. Still no response from Vorthan Prime, Zaraketh said, her voice tight with worry. The planetary communication grid went silent 6 hours ago. Captain Santos floated over to them, moving easily in the low gravity. How long do we have? She asked. Days, maybe hours, Sarah replied. The plague spreads faster once it reaches critical mass. The capital city has fallen. The rest of the planet will follow quickly. Then we better move fast. Santos activated the ship's intercom. All ships, this is Lucky Star. We're jumping to Vorthon space in 30 minutes. Anyone who wants to back out, now's your chance. Sarah listened to the radio chatter as human captains responded. Not a single ship dropped out. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, even a small cruise ship, all committed to helping strangers they didn't know. Why are they doing this? Zaraketh asked quietly. These humans don't know me or my people. They gain nothing from helping us. Sarah smiled. That's exactly why they're helping. Because you need help, and they can give it. But it's dangerous. The Council fleet is following us. If we're caught, these humans could lose their ships, their freedom, maybe their lives. I know, Sarah said, but that's how humans work. We don't calculate the risks when someone needs help. We just help. Captain Santos overheard them. Dr. Chen's right, she said. My daughter asked me once why humans always try to save people in movies, even when it's stupid and dangerous. You know what I told her? What? Zaraketh asked. Because if we don't help each other, who will? The jump to hyperspace was rough. In the old freighter, Sarah felt her stomach lurch as the stars outside twisted into strange patterns. But within hours, they were racing toward Vorthan space at impossible speeds. During the journey, something wonderful happened. The humans aboard the ship began teaching Zaraketh about their species, not through textbooks or scientific data, but through stories and jokes and shared meals. Captain Santos told her about growing up on Mars, where the only trees were in protective domes. But my grandmother had pictures of Earth forests, she said. She made me promise that someday I'd see real trees growing under an open sky. A young engineer named Tommy shared pictures of his pet dog back on Earth. Rocky's not very smart, he laughed. But he's always happy to see me when I come home, even after I've been gone for months. Elderly passenger named Mrs. Liu taught Zaraketh how to play chess. It's a game about thinking ahead, she explained. But it's also about understanding your opponent. You have to know how they think before you can beat them. With each story, each shared experience, Zarakith's understanding of humans grew deeper. She began to see patterns in their behavior that were completely different from every other species in the galaxy. "You're also individual," she observed during one conversation. "Other species I've studied think very similarly within their groups. But every human seems to have completely different thoughts and opinions." "That's because we don't share a collective consciousness like some aliens do," Sarah explained. "We have to learn to understand each other from scratch every time we meet someone new. But that must make it harder to cooperate." Tommy laughed. "You'd think so, but it actually makes us stronger. When humans work together, it's because we choose to, not because we're programmed to." As they traveled, Sarah noticed something incredible happening. Garaketh's light patterns began changing. Instead of just the basic colors that meant simple emotions, she started displaying complex, shifting patterns that seemed to respond to the humans around her. "What's happening to your bioluminescence?" Sarah asked. Zaraketh looked down at her glowing skin in wonder. "I don't know. It's like I'm learning a new language. These patterns feel right, but they're not traditional Vorthan colors." "Maybe you're developing human-influenced emotional responses," Sarah suggested. "Your biology is adapting too. Connect with us." "Is that possible? With humans? Anything's possible." Their peaceful journey was interrupted when the ship's alarms began blaring. Captain Santos' voice crackled over the intercom. "Council fleet detected behind us. They're gaining fast." Sarah and Zaraketh rushed to the bridge. Through the view screen, they could see the pursuing ships, sleek alien vessels that were much faster and more advanced than the human freighters. "How long until we reach Vorthan space?" Sarah asked. "For hours at current speed," the navigator replied, "but they'll catch us in 2. Captain Santos studied the tactical display. The Council. "Ships are faster, but they're also heavier. If we split up, some of us might make it through." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We stay together, Dr. Chen. If we don't split up, they'll capture all of us. And if we do split up, some ships will be defenseless. Humans don't abandon each other." Zarakith watched this exchange with growing amazement. Even facing certain capture, these humans were more concerned about protecting each other than about completing their mission. "There might be another way," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "The Council ships are faster, but they're following standard pursuit protocols. They expect us to run in a straight line toward our destination." Captain Santos nodded. "So what do you suggest?" "We do something no logical species would do. Something so unpredictable that their computers can't plan for it." "I'm listening," Santos said. Zarakith's light patterns shifted to excited yellow. "We head directly toward the Council fleet." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at her as if she had suggested jumping into a black hole. "That's suicide," the navigator said. "No," Zarakith said, her excitement growing. "It's human. The Council ships are programmed to intercept fleeing vessels. They won't be prepared for targets that are flying straight at them." Sarah began to smile. "And while they're trying to figure out what we're doing, we use their confusion to slip past them." "Exactly. But we have to act like humans, completely unpredictable and willing to take crazy risks." Captain Santos looked around at her crew. "Well, you heard the lady. Crazy and unpredictable it is. All ships change course. We're heading straight for the Council fleet." The radio exploded with confused chatter from the other human captains. "Lucky Star, are you sure about this? Santos, have you lost your mind? This is either brilliant or completely insane."
"Our boss."
Captain Santos replied with a grin. "That's why it'll work." The next 30 minutes were the most terrifying of Sarah's life. The human ships charged directly at the massive Council fleet. The alien vessels, confused by this suicidal tactic, broke formation trying to avoid collisions. "Now," Santos shouted, "all ships maximum thrust. Get through the gaps." The human fleet scattered, weaving between the confused Council ships like minnows swimming through a school of sharks. Several freighters took damage from warning shots, but all of them made it through. "Ha!" Tommy shouted from his engineering station. They never saw that coming. But their celebration was short-lived. New alarms began blaring as they approached Vorthan space. "What now?" Sarah asked. The view screen showed Vorthen Prime ahead of them. The planet that should have been. Glowing with the lights of billions of crystal beings was dark. Most of the surface cities showed no signs of life. Worse, a massive defense grid surrounded the planet, automated weapons that would destroy any approaching ships. The planetary government must have activated the quarantine protocol, Zaraketh said, her light patterns turning pale with despair, not letting anyone in or out. Can you override it? Sarah asked. It's not from here. The control codes change every hour, and only the High Council knows them. Zaraketh's glow dimmed to almost nothing. But the High Council is on the planet. If they're dead, ... Captain Santos studied the defense grid. Those weapon platforms look serious. My ship's not built for combat. Sarah looked around at the human volunteers who had risked everything to help strangers. These people had families back home. They had lives and dreams and futures. She couldn't ask them to die for her crazy plan. But before she could say anything, the radio crackled with a familiar voice. Dr. Chen, this is Captain Rodriguez of the cargo hauler Earth's Pride. I've been thinking about what you said earlier. What about it? Sarah replied. You said humans don't abandon people who need help? Well, there are billions of people down there who need help, and we're the only ones who can give it. Other voices joined in on the radio. Rodriguez is right. Didn't come this far to give up now. My grandmother always said that doing the right thing is never easy. If we turn back, now an entire species dies. I can't live with that. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes as she listened to these ordinary humans volunteering to face certain death for people they had never met. All ships, she said into the radio. This is Dr. Chen. I want everyone to know that what you're doing today is the most human thing I've ever seen. You're proving that empathy. Part 5. The Bond That Saves Worlds. The First Defense Satellite fired a warning shot across the bow of Captain Santos' ship. The energy beam was so powerful it lit up the entire bridge with blue fire. If it had hit them directly, the Lucky Star would have been vaporized instantly. They're not bluffing, Santos said grimly, studying the tactical display. Those weapons are designed to stop entire fleets. Sarah Chen looked out at the dark planet below, Vorthen Prime, once the crown jewel of galactic civilization, now looked like a dying ember. Only a few cities still showed the faint glow of crystal inhabitants. There has to be a way through, she said. Zaraketh was hunched over her portable computer, her light patterns flickering desperately between different colors. I'm trying to access the emergency protocols, but the system keeps rejecting my codes. It's like the planet's computer doesn't recognize me anymore. What do you mean? Sarah asked. The defense grid is programmed to respond only to healthy Vorthens. But the plague has changed my biosignature. The computer thinks I'm already infected and dangerous. Captain Santos frowned. So even if we get past the weapons, the planet won't let you land. Not unless I can prove I'm still truly Vorthen. Zaraketh's glow dimmed with despair. But I don't know if I am anymore. Sarah looked at her friend because that's what Zaraketh had become during their journey together. The alien woman's light patterns had changed completely. Instead of the pure, simple colors that marked traditional Vorthon emotions, she now displayed complex, shifting rainbows that seemed to dance with life. Maybe that's not a bug, Sarah said slowly. Maybe that's a feature. What do you mean? You said the plague makes Vorthons lose their ability to connect with others, right? They become isolated and alone until they fade away. Yes. But you're more connected now than you've ever been. Look at yourself, Zaraketh. Your bioluminescence is responding to human emotions. You're learning to understand beings that are completely different from you. You're not becoming less Vorthen. You're becoming more than Vorthen. Zaraketh stared down at her glowing skin. The patterns were indeed unlike anything in Vorthen records. They seemed to pulse in harmony with the heartbeats of the humans around her. You think I've developed immunity to the plague? I think you've developed something better. I think you've learned how to truly bond. Suddenly, the radio crackled with a new voice. It was weak and distorted, but unmistakably Vorthen. Unknown ships. This is Cathara of the High Council, daughter of Zaraketh. Is anyone out there? Zaraketh gasped. That's my daughter. She grabbed the radio with shaking hands. Cathara, it's me. It's your mother. Mother. Supposed to be at the peace conference, ... How are you here? I brought help, my darling. Are you safe? How many survivors are there? The young Vorthan's voice was barely a whisper. Not many. The capital city is almost empty. Father Morden and I are in the emergency bunker with maybe 1,000 others. But mother... We're all sick. The plague is in the bunker now. We don't have long. Sarah saw tears streaming down Zarakith's crystal face. Hold on, sweetheart. We're coming to get you. But the defense grid... I'll find a way through. I promise. Sarah looked around the bridge at the human crew. These people had already risked everything to help strangers. She was about to ask them to risk even more. Captain Santos, she said quietly, I need to ask you to do something that might get us all killed. Let me guess, Santos replied, with a tired smile. Something crazy and completely human. We need to broadcast our bonding technique to every human ship in the fleet. Then we need to somehow get close enough to the planet to transmit that technique to the Vorthan survivors. That's suicide. The defense grid will destroy us long before we get in range, not if we give them something more important to worry about. Sarah activated the ship's intercom. All human vessels, this is Dr. Chen. I'm about to teach you the bonding technique that can save the Vorthans. But I need you to understand something first. This isn't just about saving one species. This is about proving that empathy and compassion are real forces in the universe. Over the next 10 minutes, Sarah quickly explained the principles of human Vorthan bonding. It wasn't complicated, just the willingness to understand and care about someone completely different from yourself. It's that simple, asked Captain Rodriguez over the radio. It's that simple and that difficult, Sarah replied. You have to genuinely care about people you've never met. You have to be willing to share your feelings with someone who might not understand them. And you have to believe that connection is more powerful than technology. One by one, the human captains began reporting something extraordinary. Their ship's bioscanners were detecting energy patterns that matched the readings from Sarah and Zarakith's bond. This is impossible, said Mrs. Liu from the passenger liner. I'm an old woman who's never even talked to an alien before today. How can I be bonding with people I can't see? Because you chose to care about them, Sarah said simply. That's all it takes. But their time was running out. The Council fleet was approaching fast and the defense grid was powering up for another warning shot. Sarah Zarakith said urgently, I have an idea, but it's dangerous. Tell me, if I can get close enough to the planet, I might be able to use our bond to connect with the survivors. The plague spreads through isolation, right? But what if we could create a network of bonds that spreads faster than the disease? Sarah understood immediately. A chain reaction. Each person we bond with can bond with others. Exactly. But someone has to get close enough to start the process. Captain Santos was already moving toward the escape pods. I can get you there. No, Sarah said. We need the ship to coordinate the other vessels. Zarakith and I will take a pod. Dr. Chen, that's a one-way trip. The defense grid will target anything that gets too close, and will have to be too fast for them to hit. Within minutes, Sarah and Zarakith were strapped into a small escape pod. It wasn't designed for atmospheric entry, but it was there. Only option? Are you ready? Sarah asked, as they prepared to launch. Zarakith's light pattern shifted to determine gold. I'm ready. But Sarah... Thank you for everything. You've given me something I never thought I could have. What's that? A real family? Not just my children, but all of you humans? You've shown me what it means to belong somewhere. The pod launched from the Lucky Star like a bullet fired from a gun. Immediately, the defense satellites began tracking. Them energy beams lit up the space around them as the automated weapons tried to lock on. They're too slow, Sarah shouted over the noise of the pod's engines. We're going to make it. They plunged into Vorthan Prime's atmosphere, the pod's hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Below them, the planet's surface rushed up with terrifying speed. But as they descended, something miraculous began to happen. Zarakith's bioluminescence suddenly exploded into the most beautiful light show Sarah had ever seen. Patterns of every color imaginable danced across her crystal skin, and somehow Sarah could feel what each color meant. "What's happening?" she asked. "I can sense them," Zarakith whispered in wonder. "All the survivors on the planet. They're so alone, so afraid, but they're still alive. And now they can sense me too." The pod crashed into the ground near the capital city's emergency bunker. Both women were thrown around like rag dolls, but they survived. As they stumbled out of the wreckage, Sarah saw figures emerging from underground shelters, Vorthons, dozens of them, then hundreds. All walking toward Zarakith, like people walking toward a warm fire on a cold night. "Mother," a young voice called out, and suddenly Zarakith was embracing her daughter. Cathara was pale and weak, but her bioluminescence immediately began responding to her mother's new rainbow patterns. "I don't understand," the young Vorthon said. "You feel different? Stronger somehow?" "I learned how to bond," Zarakith said. "Simply, and now I'm going to teach you." What happened next would be remembered in galactic history forever. As Zaraketh shared her bond with her daughter, Cathara's light patterns began to change. The sickness that had been draining her life force started to fade. Then Cathara bonded with her brother Morden, and he bonded with their friends. They bonded with their parents and teachers and neighbors, like wildfire. The bonding technique spread through the survivor population. But it wasn't just copying Zarakith's connection with humans. Each Vorthon was learning to truly understand and care about others in their own way. Sarah watched in amazement as the planet began to come alive again. City lights flickered back on as Vorthons emerged from hiding. The defense grid shut down. As the planetary computer recognized that the plague was being cured, Sarah. Captain Santo's voice crackled through Sarah's communicator. "The Council fleet just arrived, but they're not attacking. I think they want to talk." High above them, the sleek alien ships settled into orbit. Sarah could imagine the confusion among the Council representatives as they tried to understand what they were seeing. Within hours, delegations from across the galaxy were arriving to witness the miracle. The Ethereals, the Craxians, the Malians, all the species that had dismissed human empathy as primitive were now asking how it worked. But the real proof came 3 days later, when the first interspecies bonding pairs began forming naturally. A young Vorthon artist bond,